Chet Holmgren will be the NBA's next big star. With the NBA draft coming up relatively soon, there's a bunch of hype and excitement around a bunch of different names in this year's draft, but specifically around Chet and how he would translate into the NBA. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionative NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Chet Holmgren is certainly the most interesting player in this year's upcoming draft. Whenever you talk about any player that has a lot of the skills that Chet does have, combined with the fact that they're 7 feet or over, that player is always going to be extremely interesting and extremely entertaining to see how their career goes forward. But specifically talking about Chet, not only does he have all those skills from all 3 levels, but he also performs these skills at a very high level. And due to the level of skill and versatility that he has shown in college, a lot of people think he should be the #1 overall selection in this year's upcoming draft. But let's quickly take a look at his individual skills to really determine how good he could potentially be at the next level. Starting with Chet's 3-point shooting ability, it's pretty clear that he's a phenomenal catch and shoot 3-point jump shooter. Specifically when running the pick and pop or even just spotting up in general, Chet is a phenomenal 3-point shooter. And in college, he was shooting 39% from deep, which is not only good for a power forward or center position, but is also just phenomenal shooting in general. But now moving on to his mid-range shooting ability, Chet obviously, as I mentioned before, is extremely mobile and extremely versatile and definitely has the ability to put the ball on the floor and hit a pull-up mid-range jump shot, has somewhat of an ability to hit that post turnaround fadeaway. He somewhat has a floater within his game, which is extremely unique for a 7-footer. And overall, I would just say from that mid-range area, Chet is just very versatile. But now talking about his driving and finishing ability, Chet, as I mentioned before in the video, certainly has the ability to take the ball from the top of the key and drive all the way to the basket, and sometimes even has the ability to posterize whatever players in the paint. But mostly what he does do once driving all the way to the basket is finish around players with crafty layups, either his left or right hand. He also has a pretty nice touch around the basket when he's posting up, and he just has a nice ability to put up those hook shots due to his size and skill. But one thing that I also want to mention is Chet has a phenomenal ability to handle the basketball at that size. And when you just watch him play out there, it's pretty clear that he has a well above average ball handling ability for a player that's 7 feet or taller. And that's extremely evident once he's creating for himself, either driving all the way to the basket, maybe creating for himself from that mid-range area, or maybe even from that 3-point range at times. Chet also has a decent passing and playmaking ability for his size, and overall just has a decent understanding of offenses and defenses. And overall, I would say Chet is an extremely versatile player, making him one of the most intriguing prospects coming into this year's draft. But although there certainly are a ton of positives and a ton of different things to be excited about with Chet, there certainly are some negatives and some concerns that do come along with him. And probably the biggest concern that most people have is the fact that Chet is just very skinny for his size out there. And the problem with that is in the NBA, Chet is most likely going to play the power forward position due to the fact that he's pretty skinny out there. But even at that power forward position, there's a bunch of players that could out-muscle Chet in the post, and it could even get to the point where he's a liability defensively late in games, and the team might need to take him out in late game situations. But even besides defensively, even offensively, if Chet is driving all the way to the basket, defenders could easily just push him out of the way or out-muscle him and deter Chet from wanting to drive all the way to the basket anymore and kind of just taking some of his confidence away. And we've certainly seen some players in the past that were 7 feet or taller and extremely skinny not necessarily succeed in the NBA. So certainly starting now, but especially once he gets drafted into the NBA, the first thing that in my opinion Chet should focus on is getting stronger out there. He doesn't necessarily need to get to a point where he's an extremely strong player, of course, but he just needs to get to a point where he's a lot stronger than he is currently and wouldn't necessarily get muscled around all the time. But in my opinion, although all these concerns are extremely valid, and I certainly think they are issues, I still personally think that Chet is just too talented offensively and too versatile overall, and I think he's still going to be a very good player in the NBA, and not only a very good player, but I'm even going as far as saying that I think think Chet will be a star in the NBA for years to come. But another concern that a lot of people do have is Chet's defense overall, but in my opinion it kind of tails into his overall lack of strength, so it's kind of the same point. And if he were to get stronger out there, I think he would be a better defender than he is currently. But one thing that I will say is he does a pretty nice job at coming over for some nice weak side blocks, but overall the main issue that he does face is his strength. But now let's look at a few different teams at the top of this year's draft and see how well Chet would fit in with them, and which team I personally think would be the best fit for him. So starting with the Orlando Magic, I think this would be a phenomenal fit for Chet, and I think this for a few different reasons. The first reason is when you look at the roster that the Magic do have, you talk about players like Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, but most importantly Markelle Fultz. I think that would be a great combination between Markelle and Chet. The pick and roll / pick and pop that those two guys can run together I think could potentially be very lethal, and the fact that Markelle has proven to be a really good passer and playmaker over the years, in my opinion, would be a huge benefit to Chet. Now, one thing that you could say is the Magic already have players like Mo Bamba and maybe even Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr. They just have a decent amount of bigs, but in my opinion, whenever you have the potential to draft a talent like Chet, of course you take that opportunity. And if you have to trade away a guy like Mo Bamba or even Wendell Carter Jr., I think you do that in an instant. But the next reason why I think this is a great situation is there's really not going to be all that much pressure on him besides being the #1 overall selection. Because in Orlando, obviously most people don't expect this team to win next season, and they don't expect them to win for some time now due to the fact that they're clearly rebuilding, and I think that would be a huge benefit on any young player, but especially a player that would be the #1 overall selection, that Chet would be if he were to go to the Magic. It would be a huge benefit to him, so I personally think the Magic would be a phenomenal fit for Chet. But the next team that I wanted to touch upon is the OKC Thunder. Now, I personally think Chet would be a phenomenal fit in OKC for a lot of the same reasons why I think he'd be a great fit in Orlando. Because when you actually look at the roster and you talk about Josh Giddey in specific, I think those two guys in Giddey and Chet would be a phenomenal 1-2 punch, either while running the pick and roll, running the pick and pop, or Josh Giddey just creating for Chet in general. I think it would be a perfect pairing between these two guys. But also when you consider it's pretty clear that the Thunder are rebuilding at this point and most people don't expect them to win anytime soon, that would also mean that there wouldn't be all that much pressure on Chet right away, at least to win, and I think that would be a huge benefit to him. Now there's other teams like the Houston Rockets, Sacramento Kings, and Detroit Pistons that round out the top 5, but in my opinion I don't see Chet going beyond the OKC Thunder. And I also personally think that both the Thunder and the Magic are perfect pairings for Chet. So we'll see what happens going forward for Chet. We'll first see who actually drafts him, and then we'll see how his career pans out. But of course, as I said before in the video, I personally think that he's going to be a really good player in the NBA for years to come. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Chet Holmgren will be a star in the NBA for years to come, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.